You've seen the title, you know what we're doing. What is the most disappointing Pokémon in every generation? Do keep in mind that disappointing is something different from worst. Sure, Sunflora may suck, but no one has ever been hyped for it, and while Wooloo's pre-game excitement during Sword and Shield's promo was through the roof and its eventual battle compatibility lackluster, it still satisfied what the hype was for, which is being adorable. With that in mind, let's start with Gen 1, which is probably the hardest generation in this entire video, because unlike all other gens, this one didn't have a hype cycle, pre-reveal Pokémon or, well, anything else to get excited for prior to playing the game. And so we also need to consider first impressions and excitement from later down the line as well, since we're not actually judging the Gen 1 games here, we're judging the Gen 1 Pokémon, no matter what game they appeared in. For example, Flareon is a popular Pokémon, no doubt about it. It's an evolution that's already 20 bonus points, and it is the fluffiest evolution, so while it may be the most Eevee-like out of the whole bunch, it most certainly is a beloved Pokémon that many people have tried using over the 30 years it has been around. But they would all soon find out that Flareon is not good. At all. It is easily the worst evolution in terms of battle prowess, with a lackluster move pool, low speed and HP, a deadly combo in the worst way, and arguably two of the worst abilities they could give it. Flash Fire, which boosts power when hit by a fire type move, like that will ever happen, and Guts, which prevents burn from lowering your attack. Very helpful if Flareon wasn't immune to being burned in the first place. And so, anyone looking to try out an evolution and landing on the fluffy Flareon would end up disappointed. That's the idea here. But Flareon, while a candidate, is not my Gen 1 winner. Because while Flareon may be exciting from a design perspective, I don't think it necessarily looks like an amazing fighter or anything. Onix, on the other hand, looks like an absolute monster, and back in the day, the anime only further helped cement that idea that Onix was a Gyarados-like beast, except tunneling through the ground rather than water. But in-game, I don't have to tell you how weak Onix is. Stat-wise, there have been countless memes made over the past 10 years about how poorly Onix weighs up to even weaklings like Bellsprout, and its typing doesn't exactly do much to improve it. And while that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if it just looked the part, it is the huge discrepancy between its threatening design and useless viability that make it such a disappointing mon, especially as a kid back in the day. I still remember trading for an Onix in Violet City back in Pokémon Crystal and thinking they had just handed me some overpowered monster, after not realizing how poor Onix was in Red and Blue, only to quickly learn the hard way that Onix wasn't exactly the key to becoming the new master of the Sprout Tower. And since we're already halfway into Johto, let's continue with Gen 2. The Johto Dex has built up a reputation over the years of being largely disappointing, being filled with weak one-stage Pokémon that are rather undercooked compared to their Kanto counterparts, but due to the massive number of new evolutions introduced since, I think that has been rectified somewhat. Sure, Gligar as a single stage feels incredibly pointless, but knowing that it evolves kinda fixes that problem. I do want to give a special shout out here to Miss Drevis though. After being incredibly exclusive in Gen 1, Johto finally introduces another ghost type, a pure one at that, and it's this. That must have been incredibly underwhelming at the time. But like I said, in 2026, this doesn't hit the same. So I instead want to nominate two other candidates. The first is Unknown. For how much lore, mystery and intrigue has been built up around Unknown in the games, and also the anime and other material, it is remarkably underwhelming to actually use. And I don't just mean because it only has one move or that it's weak, I mean it doesn't look strong per se. More so that, to this day, there is no form or evolution or special something that causes Unknown to showcase the power the lore says it holds. It feels like a missed opportunity. However, there have ever since Gen 2 been several games where Unknown is treated in a special manner, with Gen 2's Ruse of Elf starting this, but Legends Arceus then doubling down by making it a core collectible, and Gen 4 and Fire Red and Leaf Green also didn't just treat it like any normal Pokémon. So while it is disappointing in battle, its portrayal at least lives up to its reputation. And so, my winner is arguably the most disappointing starter Pokémon of them all. Meganium, or rather the whole evolution line I suppose. Look, I like all three of them, I think they're cute and cool, but there is no denying that the Johto deck is heavily stacked against them. Not only are grass types already at an innate disadvantage due to their weak type, it's also weak against Faulkner, then Buxy, then you have the always tricky Whitney, and then it is again weak versus Morty and later Price as well. And the only gym leader it is super effective against is Chuck, and only his Poliwrath at that. As much as I like the line, there is no denying that picking it in Gen 2 puts you at a disadvantage compared to Totodile and Cyndaquil, so it is almost guaranteed to feel disappointing as far as starters go, simply because it struggles with every opponent that can be considered a threat. Generation 3 was a batch of Pokémon that I had more trouble finding a winner for. While Hoenn is definitely not without its weaklings, I feel like you pretty much instantly spot them in a lineup, and most Pokémon that do get hyped up by the games also deliver. I contemplated giving the questionable trophy to Slacking, seeing as one look at its base stats will make you think it's legendary, when it is obviously severely hindered in reaching its full potential, but I think that it's by far more likely to happen the other way around, seeing as its ability presents itself much more front and center than its stat total. So instead, I'm following the Onix train here, and my winner is going to be Tropius. Tropius is large, Tropius is relatively rare, I feel like everyone agrees it has a banger design, and yet it's not good, to the point it's barely even good enough to impress in a casual playthrough. And unlike Onix, it has also never been fixed. Onix at least now evolves, and Steelix has Mega. Tropius is still the exact same weakling as it was back in 2003, and it had its in-game model severely nerfed in the 3DS era due to the Sky Battle shenanigans, meaning it permanently flew. Honestly, if any Pokémon at this point deserves something, it's Tropius. It's been hard done by for its entire existence and has still managed to remain relatively popular, all because its design is strong. And if we factor in design, then surely we must begin our look at Gen 4 with a Pokémon whose design often gets criticized. On paper, the idea of Rhydon evolving feels perfect. Yeah, it's already big and cool, but there's certainly more places to take it. So when Rhyperior showed up, most people ended up pretty disappointed by it. While I do get where they're coming from, I personally have never really minded Rhyperior too much. It's not my favorite or anything, but I do like its design. I never considered it a disappointment until I saw that opinion frequently shared online. So I did want to mention it, but it's not my winner. In this sort of reverse camp is Luxray. Everyone loves Luxray, it's a Sinnoh team staple, but when you then actually look at how good it really is, it suddenly feels very underwhelming. Its move pool is shockingly poor, its stats can absolutely not compensate, and it simply loses out to any electric competition it might have or a slot in your team. That said though, it is not so bad that it's unplayable even during a casual playthrough, and so it slips through the cracks to finish in second place. Because the winner for Gen 4 can only be one Pokemon, Regigigas. Such a cool design, such a cool idea, a legendary you really had to put effort into obtaining, great stats, first normal type legendary, and all of it was squandered because of its ability. Hell, Game Freak was so insistent on making Regigigas disappointing always and everywhere that they gave it its ability in Legends Arceus, even when that game doesn't even have abilities. And so, not only is Regigigas disappointing in and of itself, it also managed to disappoint us again when we were running through Snowpoint Temple and expecting a specimen that was finally freed from the shackles of its ability. On to Gen 5, and this is a generation where I knew instantly what the winner had to be, so I won't beat around the bush, it's Zoroark. I feel Zoroark has unfortunately become the poster child of disappointing Pokemon. First of all, it was extremely hyped prior to release, with Game Freak making a big deal out of it as a sort of improved Lucario, only for it to barely be available in Black and White, making it go from a fan favorite before it was even out to an afterthought. And then there is its special gimmick, its ability Illusion. Incredibly cool idea, and at first it worked pretty well too. But now that team preview is a thing when battling against other players, all that it's really good for is to confuse the hell out of the trainer AI and cheesing Ultra Necrozma. It has mostly lost its entire original purpose. Not to mention that Hisuian Zoroark now has it completely beat at its own game. It's essentially the original vision changed to fit the modern Pokemon landscape. But that does just leave the original Zoroark in the dust, and thinking back to the hype it once had, I cannot conclude anything else than that Zoroark might just be the most disappointing Pokemon we've ever had. So while Gen 5 was easy pickings, I thought Gen 6 was actually quite a bit harder, especially since it has such a small roster of new Pokemon. My first idea was to talk about how Delphox and Chestnut pretty universally failed to capture the hearts of fans like Greninja did, but I don't know, I think it's more that Greninja is ridiculously popular rather than Delphox and Chestnut being disproportionately disliked. Another idea that came to mind was Aurorus. It felt like T-Rex and Sauropod fossil Pokemon were long overdue, and while I personally really like Tyrantrum, it's one of my favorite Pokemon in fact, Aurora's always felt a little meh. It's not bad, its design is decent but could be better, but especially in battle it is very underwhelming. Its typing is just such a letdown. Ice Rock is basically a death sentence right out of the gate, which is in strong contrast to Tyrantrum, who has a really good typing, especially for how early in the game you can get Tyrant. But while Aurora's was close to winning, I did eventually settle on what is quite clearly the weakest pseudo-legendary we've ever had, Goodra. I don't need to tell you how hyped pseudo-legendaries always are. You know, they are, along with starters, the Pokemon most people look forward to seeing when a new generation hits. But not only is Goodra's design not exactly the best we have ever seen, and it can be rather annoying to evolve Sliggoo, it is also remarkably underwhelming in battle, which is a severe letdown when you follow in the footsteps of Hydreigon. It's a tank that can't tank, that alone tells you what we're dealing with here. Its special defense is great, but its HP is not stellar, physical defense is too low to perform its role, and lacks any form of recovery moves. It's just a super underwhelming package, especially compared to its fellow pseudo-legendaries. And to add insult to injury, just like Zoroark, it now has a Hisuian form that outperforms it quite easily, simply because it has a much better typing and more defense. Just like Gen 2, Gen 7 is well known for its underwhelming Pokemon, especially in the battle department. Way too many Alolan natives lack any form of speed to keep up with the past heavy hitters, which leads to a crop of Pokemon with a whole bunch of strong designs, if you ask me, but disappointing battle performance. Well, a winner fittingly comes from this camp. I do want to highlight another Pokemon that looks cool and has an interesting mechanic, yet is more annoying to use on a playthrough than anything else. Golisopod ticks every box for me, and so I should really like it, but there's no other way to put it. Actually using it while on your journey is just tedious. Its ability Emergency Exit, where it automatically switches out when its health gets below half, has its niche uses as a gimmick in competitive, but in an actual run-through of a game, it doesn't work. 9 times out of 10 you are the stronger party in a battle, meaning that Golisopod can still easily win with below half HP. Not to mention that it's much easier to heal and restore health during an actual playthrough than during competitive battles. And so, Golisopod kinda ends up feeling like it constantly wastes my time by switching out when there's really no need to. But at least Golisopod does what it says on the tin. Vikavolt, on the other hand, while the dex talks about how fast it moves and how agile it is, something its design only further suggests, its actual in-battle speed is absolutely dire. So dire that it is bound to make you wonder why the hell you carry that Charger Bug with you all the way to Vespony Canyon, in the original Sun and Moon at least. It's like a perfect storm of disappointment. Design doesn't match the stats are not good at all, its speed stat is even lower than freaking Onyx's, yet they originally required way too much work to even obtain, and it wasn't worth it. Many Pokemon in Alola lack impressive speed, but very few become as big a disappointment because of it as Vikavolt, it's that simple. Gen 8 is another region where I struggle to really pick a winner, because I think all Pokemon that struggle in the design department deliver in battle, and those with killer designs that end up not doing much all have designs that really don't suggest or scream I'm a powerhouse, like the Wooloo from the intro. The former example definitely applies to the 4 fossils. As the home of archaeology, a Britain-inspired region should have been a place with phenomenal fossil Pokemon, and instead we got designs even a mother couldn't love. But I cannot overlook the prominence of, for example, Dracovish in battle. That makes calling it disappointing very hard to do, even if I do feel the Galar fossils are letdowns. But instead, my winner is gonna be a legendary Pokemon, a mythical in fact, but probably the most underwhelming of them all. And that's saying something, because mythicals tend to be a little forgettable in general. Let's be real here though, Zarude does not look like a legendary Pokemon in any way, shape or form. Its design is aggressively underwhelming for a Pokemon meant to be special, and while there's no denying its senior to move jungle healing is great, and it's in general a pretty strong Pokemon for competitive purposes, if I told you I would be showing you a mythical Pokemon in 10 seconds and then showed Zarude, you would be disappointed. Even if you like its design, you would be disappointed I think, simply because it doesn't live up to that title. It doesn't even look remotely unique or special, something that's actually only corroborated by the movie it hails from. And I also want to point out, Dada Zarude might be the lamest form of any Pokemon ever, to make matters even worse. On to Generation 9, which on the surface has the same problem as Gen 8, but this time 2 names did jump out to me as strong candidates. The first is the Dunsparce. For as long as it has been around, people have been clamoring for a Dunsparce evolution to arrive. It's probably one of the most popular Fakemon creations out there. So when the real deal finally arrived, reception was mixed. Those who hoped for an epic rags to riches story, a dragon-type Dunsparce evolution that mirrored Gyarados or Milotic, were severely disappointed. The Dunsparce is just more Dunsparce in every meaning of the word. While I do understand and like that the entire point of the Pokemon is to be rare and elusive, but then end up underwhelming, I do kinda agree that the Dunsparce could have used a bit more than what it ended up being. But because that glow-up many hoped for actually goes against what Dunsparce is about, I didn't really expect it to happen, and so I wouldn't call it the most disappointing Pokemon of Gen 9. That title goes to another Pokemon, the idea of which people were very hyped for. Scovillain, or rather the very first Grass-Fire type ever. Such a hyped combination, 2 starter types that feel like they should work together in a very unique way, once again being a big inspiration for plenty of fan artists. And then came the real thing, and I mean, it's alright I guess. It's not a bad design, but it's definitely far from the greatest in Gen 9 I would say, and in battle it is essentially a middle stage, it's that underwhelming. All it has going for it is its unique typing, and that is also immediately why it feels like a disappointment that this is it. This is what you get when you combine 2 of the series' most iconic types. And fittingly, even its Mega is pretty underwhelming. Which leads into a final bonus round. The most disappointing Mega Evolution, seeing as we now have so many we can fill up an entire dex of them. Scovillain was definitely another candidate again here, its Mega design doesn't move me at all, but I guess it being disappointing in the first place saves it from being chosen a second time. Other candidates from ZA include Mega Feraligatr, Mega Dragonite and Golisopod, but it does feel a little wrong to pick one of these when we have yet to learn what their abilities will end up being, which could have a big effect on how these Megas are perceived. So instead, my winner is a Mega introduced in X and Y, and one that was surely one of the most anticipated ones, seeing as the Pokemon in question is a fan favorite. But there's no denying that Mega Garchomp is a fumble of astronomical proportions. Sure, its design is a banger, I won't deny that, even if Scythe's hands are incredibly impractical, but still. The problem lies in battle. The entire point of Mega Evolutions in the first place. But Garchomp is arguably better if it does a Mega Evolve. It gets significantly slower, and while both its attack and special attack do get boosted, it's not like Garchomp really needed that. It was already more than capable of delivering deadly hits. And at the same time, you lose both a slot for another item, and you lose the ability to use another Mega, in the traditional battle format at least, making Mega Garchomp a net negative, I would say. And that is the last thing you want from a powered up version of one of the most popular Pokemon out there. But what do you consider the most disappointing Pokemon in the series? Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. If you really want to support me, you can now become a channel member to get all kinds of fun perks and help me keep bringing these videos to your doorstep every week. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.